All right. We are live. Good morning, everybody. You know, actually, before we got started, Sandy and I were talking about this yesterday, as we were going to be making, like, funny faces to get ourselves all hyped up for this morning.
I
We
needed
forgot
that
to do
too.
that, okay? So, okay, that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to take a couple minutes or a few seconds. It doesn't have to be minutes. And let's all just make a funny face, okay?
Yes.
Just to get all hyped up this morning. You know, one of the biggest things with, having a positive mindset is that you get a positive mood, right?
That's
So
right.
I feel like, when we, get a little goofy, we get our energy up, we talked about, exercising and, just get your body moving, and that puts you in a good mood. And so one of the things that is a great way to get yourself in a good mood is to make funny faces. And if you do that in the mirror, it's even more fun. Or if you do it with a friend and you take a picture, that's always fun too. It was like my daughter and I we were on a walk the other day. Well, I guess a couple of weeks ago, but we were on a walk and we were like just being goofy, and we decided just to take a picture of ourselves making funny faces. And I was like, oh my God, that's the most funny face I've made in a while. I'm going to post that on Facebook just to see if anybody laughs at it. And of course I did, and it was goofy, and we had a good time. But anyway, welcome everybody to our Saturday morning mastermind. My name is Samantha Studebaker-Carl, and I'm the founder of the Mindset Mastery Collective. I'm here with my good friends, Sandy, Katherine, and Danielle. And if you're out there, wherever you are, happen to be watching, if you're out there on our Google Plus page, go ahead and comment below the video and just let us know where you are in the world. Is this your first visit with us? Have you hung out here before? And another thing I thought, hey Sandy, can you mute yourself out? I'm getting some echo.
Oh, sorry. My screen is frozen.
No problem. So one thing I was thinking that we would all just kind of share a little bit before we get going is, of course, where we're from and why we're here. That's one thing that we don't always talk about is, what is it that we really want to get out of this hangout? And so I'll just, I'll kind of start. Again, I'm Samantha Studebaker-Carl. I'm out here in a beautiful southwest Georgia. It's a little cloudy, but it's still good weather. It's nice out, and my main purpose for starting this hangout was because I knew that, in order to become a better version of myself and be more successful in my business and my life, I had to work on my personal development. And I knew that if I had to work on it, then, everybody else has to work on it too. So that's why I started this community as well as this hangout, because I wanted to be able to share my journey in personal development and help you on your journey as well. So yeah, Katherine, go ahead and introduce yourself. Hopefully Sandy's going to pop back on. I hope she didn't permanently fall off.
She'll be back. She'll be back. I'm Katherine Clement. I'm out here in Boulder, Colorado. And I think we're going to have some rain today, too, but that's okay because I've got tons of stuff in the garden that needs it, and that means I don't have to water today, so it's all good. And I'm here, Sam, it's just what you said. What I've found is that, more than 3/4 of the battle is mindset. And so if I can help people, oftentimes when people share things and get together in groups and start talking about some of these concepts, you can read the book, and I encourage everyone to just read the book on your own. But when you meet up with other people and hear sometimes how they've interpreted that chapter, or they share something that's happened in their life, sometimes they can just really set that lesson into your system a little better. And then just joining energy with other like-minded people, positive-minded people that are trying to improve their mindset as well and manifest their dreams. So that's why I'm here, is just to hang out with some really cool people. Go ahead, Danielle.
Hi, I'm Danielle DeLions. I live out here in Southern California, actually Anaheim, California, very near Angel Stadium and Disneyland. The funnest place in the world. I don't know about that, but needless to say, I came across this community. I'm just becoming familiar with Google Plus, And I am always looking for ways to improve and grow myself personally. I have a special skill for being able to get people to open up to me. So in my journey in growing myself, I'm always looking for opportunities to better understand other people, especially in the profession that I'm in. I'm in the people business. I really do want to come to a deeper spiritual sense of other people. So this immediately attracted my attention, this particular group. And it's great to be able to be amongst fresh minds that you're not related to, and in business sometimes you grow in a different way because it's not about your business at that point. We're not relating it to that. And therefore, again, I can touch a wider scope of people in my daily life. And in that process, I better understand myself. I don't think that we ever will fully come to a full understanding of ourselves, but we evolve over time. And I certainly believe this is a very good vehicle for us to learn how to do that. And Sandy.
Hey, okay. Yeah, sorry, my computer's being a little wacky today. Okay, it's Sandy here in Brooklyn. It's a beautiful, warm summer day. You can hear the people stirring outside already. And I'm happy to be back. Good to see you, Katherine and Samantha here again. And Danielle, nice to meet you. Yeah, the summer, the warm weather hits too, and then weekend festivities come abound. So I missed the last couple weeks. But yeah, I've been on this for what now, Samantha? Over a year, and you know, it's just become a part of my life. So when I do miss it, I really do miss it. I feel like, oh no, you know, it's like a little sadness when I'm not there, and because it's really become a part of me, and just being able to have this on the weekend. You know, we go strong during the week with our personal development and stuff, but I think it's nice to also have it on a weekend morning to just keep it going and have it throughout the weekend as well, that personal development feeling. And I just love this book. It's a great book to read over and over and over again. Top leaders read it, and you know, it's just great for people who are looking for success and personal development, change in their life. So I'm excited to be here again today.
You're muted, Sam.
There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, technical difficulties, right? Anyway, I was just saying how much I appreciate everything you guys said, and I completely agree, Sandy. Having this on the weekends is just, it's so wonderful to start our Saturday morning like this. You know, it's kind of like, for me, it's like going to church, you know, only more fun. That's just my opinion. Okay, so everybody's been mentioning the book that we're talking about, and we have been studying The New PSYCHO CYBERNETICS by Maxwell Maltz. And if you're brand new to our hangout, we're actually in chapter 9, so we've covered quite a bit of this book so far. But you'll notice in the description on this event page, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of this description, there's a link to the playlist where you can go back and watch any of our previous Saturday morning hangouts. So if you want to go back and go through the book from the very beginning, you're very welcome to do that. I encourage you to do so, but I am just going to kind of give a brief overview of what we've talked about so far. Before I do that, though, let me just kind of welcome people that are hanging out on the page. Welcome, Kay. How are you? And let's see who else is on here. Okay, so we've got William. It doesn't look like we've got a lot of folks on here yet, but people tend to start coming in a little bit later as we get going along. That's okay. Welcome, everybody. And okay, so the main premise of this book, or the main concept of this book, is Dr. Maltz was a plastic surgeon, and he realized over time that changing people's appearance didn't always change their like personality. Sometimes it would, sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes people would come to him, they'd be all depressed because they would have some kind of an issue with their physical appearance, and he would change that and they would be like a whole new person. And then in other cases, he would change something and they would still be that same old person. So that perplexed him. So he did a lot of study on the brain and how our minds work and how all of those things kind of come together to make us who we are. And he determined through many different methods of study that what we have in our brain is called like an automatic mechanism. And you can see your own automatic mechanism in action when you learn a new skill. Like when you learn how to drive, you know, at first it's really difficult to drive. You're being all super conscious of every little move you make. And then after a period of time of training yourself how to react on the road, all of a sudden it becomes like second nature. And so what his suggestion on this is that because we are able to train our mind to automatically react, just like when you're learning how to drive a car, is that you can do the same thing in your life. And we also see this happen in our relationships and in you know, our emotional responses and, you know, all kinds of different things. Is that we act a certain way because we've been taught to act that way, and then when that situation happens in our life, we automatically respond to it. Just like when you first greet a person, your automatic response is, "Hey, how you doing?" Or, you know, everybody has that automatic response, right? And when you realize that that is something that has been trained into your brain, and that you can actually take control of the training, and you can make a switch and determine how you want to be from this point forward into the future, then you kind of empower yourself by realizing that. Is that all making sense so far, guys? Okay, so so basically what we've covered up until this point is you know, all the, you know, basically understanding how all of that works. And now we're at a point where in Chapter 9 we are looking at the different warning signs that will help you identify when you are going off the path of this new direction that you're trying to take. So let's just say that you want to you know, you want to change you want to be more successful in your life. You know, before you've been really depressed, you've been having all these struggles, maybe your relationships aren't that great, and you want to take control of that and point yourself in a new direction. Well, you have all this pre-programming that's going on with you from everything that's happened to you previously in your life, and when you decide that you're going to take a new direction, those first steps into this new journey are going to be a little bit more difficult because you have this pre-programming and you want to have this, you've got this goal out here that you want to reach, but yet when you're going along and you know you want to reach this goal, but then all of a sudden you kind of go off in the wrong direction. Well, this chapter is about those warning signs that are like, okay, hey, you're going off in the wrong direction. Recognize it, and then you can you know, identify what it is that's causing it and bring yourself back on path again to point yourself in the direction that you want to go. So let's see here. So guys, do you guys want to add anything to that before we jump into these different warning signs? And then I think we're on the second one this time.
Yeah, I'll say something. Well, a lot of things popped up for me. I guess I have a lot to say from not being here the past 3 weeks. But I saw a little video. I don't even remember where I saw it. I think it was on Facebook last night, and it was about the rat race, pretty much, and how people can get really stuck in that rat race of like, okay, I'm driving to work and I'm miserable, and I didn't have time this week to get groceries, so I'm going to go to the grocery store on the way home, and everybody's here and the line's long, and just sort of being in this blah, like, and then towards the end of the little film, they're showing how in the line, this guy in the grocery store line, the way he could change his thoughts and see things in a different way and look at the people in a different way, like, oh, maybe, you know, she's here on the phone talking so loud because her husband is sick and she has to come get food for him real quick, or you just never know what somebody's going through. So it was just cool how it's hard to describe the film without seeing it, just how it was starting out in the way that we have these habitual ways of being, these habitual thoughts, and how just a little tweak and trying something different can really change the course of how we're being and what we're feeling and how we're impacting the people around us. And I'll just say briefly something similar to that happened to me this week. An old relationship came back into my life, and it's really been tweaking me a little bit because I'm a lot different than I was when this relationship was going on, and I'm watching the way that I used to react to this person, and I'm just sort of more stepping back and watching myself, the reaction and the emotions and the feelings that were there and how they're coming up, and dealing with them in a different way, thinking of this person in a different way. It's hard to explain without explaining the whole story, but it's sort of like I had these patterns in the way I was relating to him in the past, and I'm sort of trying to not do those patterns and step back and see where it will go from my new developed self. And so it's exciting because, you know, sometimes it can be scary when we're first changing our thoughts and patterns and not knowing how things will turn out. But I know that this has to turn out better than the past, because the past I repeated these patterns with this particular person over and over and over. So it's nice to be in a space where I'm much stronger and able to step back and try something different that I know is much more healthier for me and for him in the long run. So that's all I'll share for now. Thanks.
Anybody else have thoughts?
I also experienced something very similar to Sandy, so I'm nodding my head emphatically because it relates so strongly to what she's talking about. I've been through exactly the same kind of scenario recently myself, and so I'm always looking for how I'm behaving personally in certain circumstances so that I become better and I grow from them. And just like yourself, Sandy, I recognize that in my current relationship, I was hiding things from the past relationship out of fear. And it's a mechanism that we use, and you have to set yourself free from fears or doubts and acknowledge that things happen in life and it has nothing to do with who we are at the moment and that we're going forward. And we don't have to behave in the same instinctive ways we did previously. And it's just realizing that you have patterns in how you behave with certain people or certain circumstances. And that same tightness and what we're going to go into a little bit more today, you know, is dealing with frustration, but also other ways that we bring it out of ourselves. And reading these particular chapters really helps me identify how I have behaved in the past and what I'm not willing to do any longer. So I've appreciated reading this very much.
Did you want to add anything, Katherine?
Oh, sorry.
Or, yeah, jump back in if you have something else.
Another thing came to me because we were talking about, well, you mentioned a bit earlier about how, you know, something we've learned before it becomes automatic, like driving. And I noticed this the last couple weekends because I drum sometimes, like a djembe drum, and I hadn't practiced in a long time. In the last 2 weekends, I was with friends who we play a lot of music together. So I was like, oh, I haven't been practicing, but it was just like it came all back. It was just right there in my hands, in my being, and it was pretty cool to see that because I really thought I had lost it. And of course, I didn't advance because I haven't been practicing, and of course my drum teacher was not happy about that either. but it was cool to see something that I've recently learned. I just started playing drum maybe the last couple of years, and to see how it really does stick when we do learn something. So just imagining how our thoughts and feelings and these patterns, like Danielle was just saying, that, you know, we get these patterns and sometimes we're so blind to them. But you know, whether it's a success mechanism or a failure mechanism, they get in and they're there. They're in our hands. They're in our beings. So it's great to be reading this book and becoming aware of all those things, whether it's a success or a failure mechanism. Just becoming more and more aware. So, okay, that's it for now.
Oh wow, that, you know, those are some powerful thoughts, ladies. You know, I really, you know, with the whole relationship thing, that is such a big thing, because I have been in a long-term relationship with my husband, and over that time our relationship has changed, but I can look back over, like our beginning relationship and in the middle and the way things are now, and see how I have reacted differently, based on the things that I've learned, and particularly in the past couple of years with all the personal development that I've done, is just, like you were saying, Sandy, is just be able to, kind of almost like you're taking a step back and watching your interaction between you and your partner, and seeing what is something that is habitual and something that where you're actually in the moment and thinking things through and that sort of thing, and so it's really interesting to be able to do that. And one thing that also kind of came up for me, and I was going to mention this before but I didn't, is we all are a part of, well, all of us on the panel here are in the home business industry, and I don't know if you are out there or not, and if you are, that's great. If you're in something else, that's fine too. But with us, a lot of us, we follow some really highly successful leaders, and we all read a lot of different books, and every one of them talks about constantly, feeding your brain with good, positive stuff. And this is the reason why, because like Sandy was saying, she just picked up the drums after having, played them a lot, before, having learned it a while back. She picked it up and she had it mostly still there. We all hear the old saying of, it's just like riding a bike. You used to know how to do it, even though you haven't done it for 10 years, you can get right on there and ride that bike, right? Well, and it's the same thing with our automatic mechanism. So all of these leaders and all of these personal development gurus are always talking about feeding your brain all of this positive stuff, and the reason why is because these programs or these habits or these rituals that we've gotten ourselves into all throughout our life up until this point are deeply, deeply ingrained, and it's not going to be something that you can just change overnight. You've got to keep inundating yourself with, with changing your patterns through changing what you're feeding your brain. So, a lot of us, we read books, we listen to audios, we watch seminars, we do hypnosis, we do EFT, there's all these different things. It's not just like one thing and then you're good to go. You've got to keep working on it because we're constantly growing. So that's basically what I wanted to kind of cover there. But if we want to go ahead and jump into this chapter, let me just kind of talk. We'll just say the 7 different negative feedback signals. Last week we covered frustration, but at the beginning of this chapter it talked about these signals as negative emotions are alarms or negative feedback signals, and the 7 ones are number 1, frustration, hopelessness, futility. 2, aggressiveness, misdirected. 3, insecurity. 4, loneliness or lack of oneness. 5, uncertainty. 6, resentment. 7, emptiness. Excuse me. And then it says here, let's see, each, okay, I don't need to read that part. Okay, so, yeah, who wants to read this morning?
Can.
Okay, go ahead and jump on with it.
Excuse me. Okay. Aggressiveness. Excessive and misdirected aggressiveness follows frustration as night follows day. One of the most horrifying diseases of the day is Alzheimer's, in which a person may retain sound physical health but lose memory and identity in ever-increasing episodic debilitation. It is common for victims of this disease to occasionally, without warning, turn violent towards their caregivers or loved ones. I am convinced such aggressiveness is a direct product of the unimaginable frustration these people must feel at having their very identity disappear from their memory. When people unafflicted with Alzheimer's turn violent or vicious toward others, it is often the direct product of having their true self beaten on, tortured, and imprisoned in the form of an unhealthy self-image. A longtime friend of my wife, Anne's, a successful career woman, married a somewhat younger, much less accomplished man. She seemed quite content with being the breadwinner, earning virtually all of the household income and supporting him generously. At first, so did he. But others' tacit disapproval, his friends making jokes at his expense, her family's criticism all built up as a weight of frustration. He attempted several business ventures he was ill-equipped for, invested without due diligence, and began a pattern leading only to greater frustration. At the same pace, she was being put upon by friends and family so that she became dissatisfied and critical. When all of his frustration hit a boiling point in this overheated environment, an argument turned violent and he hit her a number of times, ultimately leading to a 911 call and police cars arriving, lights on, sirens blazing. The incident did not just go away, as these sort of things really do. It was the beginning of the end of the marriage. There is absolutely no acceptable excuse for a man striking a woman or vice versa, but it is easily explained as a predictable result as unchecked frustration begets aggression. Still, with such unpleasant examples noted, aggressiveness itself is not an abnormal behavior pattern, as some psychiatrists once believed. Aggressiveness and emotional steam are very necessary in reaching a goal. We must go out after what we want in an aggressive rather than in a defensive or tentative manner. We must grapple with problems aggressively. The mere fact of having an important goal is enough to create emotional steam in our boiler and bring aggressive tendencies into play. However, trouble ensues when we are blocked or frustrated in achieving our goal. The emotional steam is then dammed up, seeking an outlet. Misdirected or unused, it becomes a destructive force. The worker who wants to punch his boss in the nose but doesn't dare goes home and snaps at his wife and kids or kicks the cat. Or he may turn his aggressiveness on himself in much the same way that a certain scorpion in South America will sting itself and die of its own poison when angered. Don't lash out blindly. Concentrate your fire. The automatic failure mechanism does not direct aggressiveness toward the accomplishment of a worthwhile goal. Instead, it is used in such self-destructive channels as ulcers, high blood pressure, worry, excessive drinking, or compulsive overwork. Or it may be turned on other persons in the form of irritability, rudeness, gossip, nagging, fault-finding, or even violence. The answer to aggression is not to eradicate it, but to understand it and to provide proper and appropriate channels for its expression. When we recognize aggressiveness rearing its head, we want to turn it around on the frustration that birthed it, to use all this energy in taking productive action to resolve the frustration itself. Knowledge gives you power. Merely understanding the mechanism involved helps a person handle the frustration-aggression cycle. Misdirected aggression is an attempt to hit one target, the original goal, by lashing out at any target. It doesn't work. Recall the children's cartoon of Elmer Fudd trying to hunt the wily rabbit. After shooting at him and missing several times, Fudd blasts wildly away in a dozen different directions. I suspect human duck and geese hunters sometimes succumb to the same temptation. You don't solve one problem by creating another. If you feel like snapping at someone, stop and ask yourself, is this merely my own frustration at work? What has frustrated me? Am I just shooting in a dozen different directions? When you see that your response is inappropriate, you've gone a long way toward controlling it. It also takes much of the sting away when someone is rude to you, if you realize that it is probably not a willful act, but an automatic mechanism at work. The other fellow is letting off steam that he could not use in achieving some goal. Many automobile accidents are caused by the frustration-aggression mechanism. Today it's been given the name road rage. There's also airline passenger rage. These names simply label the outcome of unchecked frustration building to aggression. The next time someone is rude to you in traffic, try this. Instead of becoming aggressive and thus a menace yourself, say to yourself, the poor fellow has nothing against me personally. Maybe his wife burned the toast this morning. He can't pay the rent, or his boss chewed him out. Safety valves for emotional steam. When you are blocked in achieving an important goal, you are somewhat like a steam locomotive with a full head of steam with nowhere to go. You need a safety valve for your excess of emotional steam. All types of physical exercise are excellent for draining off aggression. Long, brisk walks, push-ups, dumbbell exercises are good. Especially good are those games where you hit or smash something: golf, tennis, bowling, punching the bag. Another good device is to vent your spleen in writing. Write a letter to the person who has frustrated or angered you. Pull out all the stops. Leave nothing to the imagination. Then burn the letter. The best channel of all for aggression is to use it up as it was indeed to be used, in working towards some goal. Work remains one of the best therapies and one of the best tranquilizers for a troubled spirit.
Yeah, we can talk about this a little bit. I wanted to just kind of reiterate some of the things it was saying in here. It was talking about when you see that your response is inappropriate, you have gone a long way toward controlling it, and that's the key in making those changes and those habitual responses, is identifying them. And that's of course why we're studying this particular chapter, is to help us identify those things as they come up in our lives. And I can tell you there's been a lot of times in my life, particularly with my husband. I mean, we've never been argumentative. I mean, that's not something that is typical for us, but that doesn't mean that we haven't had arguments. It doesn't mean that we haven't been frustrated or upset in one way or another here or there throughout our lives. But I can tell you a number of times where when for a lot of years I was a pet groomer, and that took a lot of patience in that job in order for me to be able to perform at my best and be good with customers and be good with other employees, and and work with the dogs and all of those kinds of things. And what I noticed over time is, particularly when I was working with a lot of animals that were just very frustrating to work with, is that I'd have all this patience at work, and then I would get home and I wouldn't have any left. I wouldn't have anything for my kids. I wouldn't have anything for my husband, and I'd be coming home and I'd be just in a grumpy mood. And and it's funny because over time I've started to recognize when I start to feel grumpy, okay, what is it I'm really grumpy about? Try and identify what that thing is, because it's obviously not my husband or my kids, because they just showed up. They just came home. It's not their fault. Whatever I'm upset about, it's obviously something that's going on with me. And just being able to recognize that and be like, okay, what's the real problem here? And like it was talking about, when you get frustrated, is just get up and do some exercise. And I've found that that's been very, very useful for me. Anybody else have thoughts?
I want to back up on that too, because I recognized that years ago when my kids were young and their dad and I were both working. I have 5 children, and I had to work outside the home as well. I had 2 live-in nannies. We both worked 60 to 80-hour work weeks. We had no life, and I had gotten to a point where I achieved accomplishing a home-based business and was in a position to retire him. And I thought, okay, this is going to solve the problem for him always coming home, his frustration of the day, traffic, his bosses, people he didn't want to work with, that he would come home and be at home now, and that aggressiveness that he had would go away. What I now recognize years later is that he didn't know how to shut off the valves. And I was trying to put a bandage on it. And sometimes we can't do that for others, but what we can do for ourselves, and it point this out so nicely and gently for our own benefit, is that we have to see in other people, you know what, they had a bad day, and just let it go. Don't feed into the aggressiveness or the energy that's negative that somebody else is experiencing, but stay at peace with ourselves. And that was something big time I took from reading this particular part of that chapter.
I was going to say, what's that sentence he said there? Aggressiveness and emotional steam are very necessary in reaching a goal. And no, I've definitely seen how that feeling can really be put towards our goals, towards our work, towards what we're wanting in our life. I actually went to a psychic. When was it? It was maybe a year ago, and she said you need to focus on your masculine mode right now. The masculine is more of the action, the aggressor, and let the submissive, the feminine side, sort of not push her away, but have your male side a little stronger. And I'm like, that's interesting. Okay. And it was really when I was going really strong in my business, so it made sense at the same time. And I think in our society, at the same time, in the past few months, I've been going I don't know if any of you have heard of it. Probably some of you have, like bioenergetics or core energetic work, where you're really using your body to work through your emotions, like screaming, hitting pillows, crying, whatever's come thrashing your body around. I love the work. It's really amazing. And my practitioner said, you know, most women hold in their anger, and that's where a lot of breast cancers are coming from. You know, we don't grow up as women being able to be aggressive, and I think it's important to be able to let that out in a healthy way, like by screaming, by beating pillows, by letting our frustration out. You know, I'm the wild woman now, so I happily do that. When I feel something coming, I go to my bed and I let it out. So I think it's important to really let that aggression out in a healthy way, because I know that I've also held it in the past and lashed out at people who were close to me, and then not even knowing I was doing it, but now looking back, like, wow, you know, that was just pent up frustration and not knowing how to release it in a healthy way. So yeah, like he said in the book, you're taking a walk, lifting weights, whatever it is, like there's awesome ways to release the aggression, and then of course putting it into any work that we're doing too, really transforming it in a way that's pushing us forward in a healthy way. So awesome little chapter here.
Okay, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything, Catherine. Yeah, I have not heard of the bioenergetics. I mean, obviously I've heard of, you know, letting your frustration out on a pillow or a punching bag, or, you know, using exercise of some sort to do that, but I have not, I'd never heard of the bioenergetics. Thank you for sharing that, Sandy. Catherine, did you want to add anything before we go into the next section?
This is a deep subject here. The only thing I would mention is that sometimes if things do come out of patterns, and so sometimes if you keep running into aggressive people, you might want to look at what vibration you're expressing. In other words, if you're coming from a fearful place and you're expressing a fearful vibration, you'll attract things that will cause you fear. So just sort of watch that little play part of it. That's all. That could be like a whole hour discussion, so I don't even want to get going on that. We won't get the book read.
All right, let me jump over here to the event page real quick. Zach put a comment on here. He says, I realize that when you can't aim your frustration at the source, you aim it at other areas that you don't see restraints. You look for areas that you are dominant in and channel your frustrations there. You have to learn to aim it where it started from, know the context of where the frustration came from. If it is a professional setting, then it should be then be professional and confront it in that context. You can't fix the problem by creating one where none exists. Oh, so true, Zach. That is so true. And I think that you're right. I mean, that's exactly what we're talking about, is when you're frustrated in one area of your life, you bring it over to another area, and when you do that, you just cause more problems in your life than what you want. So absolutely, just yeah, identifying what the cause is. That's the biggest thing, I think, is just identifying that cause and seeing how you can work through it. And if there is no answer to it, then like what Sandy said, you know, hit a pillow, get upset, get physically active, expel that energy in some way, and then redirect yourself the next time you have to be in that situation and see if you can't make a change. Okay, so who wants to read the next section?
I can read.
Okay.
All right, insecurity. The feeling of insecurity is based on a concept or belief of inner inadequacy. If you feel that you do not measure up to what is required, you feel insecure. A great deal of insecurity is due not to the fact that our inner resources are actually inadequate, but to the fact that we use a false measuring stick. We compare our actual abilities to an imagined ideal, perfect or absolute self. Thinking of yourself in terms of absolutes induces insecurity. The insecure person feels that he should be good, period. He should be successful, period. He should be happy, competent, poised, period. These are all worthy goals, but they should be thought of, at least in their absolute sense, as goals to be achieved, as something to reach for, rather than as shoulds. A friend of mine, who heads up a large management consulting firm, talked with me once about a popular business book entitled The Peter Principle, espousing the theory that business bureaucracies always err in eventually promoting people to their level of incompetence with disastrous results. I have seen this occur many times myself. The good, effective doctor, happy in his work, once promoted by the hospital to head of a department, turns out to be a miserable manager. The hospital loses a great doctor and gains an incompetent administrator. My friend differed with this as an absolute. There's no doubt the so-called Peter Principle explains, or at least provides, a convenient shorthand label for such situations, he said, but then it fails to explain the exact same situation with a much different outcome. What about the person who gets promoted far beyond his level of experience, knowledge, preparation, or competence, and is even expected to fail by those around him, who rises to the occasion and succeeds? As we discussed this further, I realized this was much like the earliest observations and questions that led me to psychocybernetics. Two unhappy people with nearly identical physical flaws, magnified in importance by their own imaginations, yet virtually the same cosmetic surgery. One behaves as you and I would anticipate, but the other retains all the same negative feelings about herself as if the scar still existed. Why? In both these scenarios, the surgeries and the promotions, the difference in outcomes is hidden in the individual's self-images. It cannot be seen on their faces or on their resumes. The person who is already insecure, who is harboring a weak self-image, and who is by willpower forcing himself to the very edges of performance, it will permit, if promoted, responds to the promotion as the straw that broke the camel's back, not as golden opportunity. Yeah, that doesn't seem to be a good place to stop. The magic, do you want me to keep going? Or do you want to discuss that?
Yeah, you can keep going. Unless somebody wants to jump in and add something, that's completely okay. Anybody can jump in at any time.
All right, I'll keep going. The magic power of recalibration. There are many approaches to ridding yourself of insecurities so that you may rise to whatever occasion presents itself. One is to think rationally about the situation, the other people involved, and about yourself. Another is self-image reassurance and strengthening, including role-playing what now needs to be done competently in the theater of your mind and sending your automatic success mechanism on new search missions to provide answers, ideas, and answers required. Another is the immediate resetting of your sights on appropriate new targets. Here's why recalibration is so important. A famous New York sports writer once gave me this example. Holy smokes, I got small. Consider two very successful college football coaches who get head coaching jobs in the NFL, in essence promoted to a whole new level of competition. We sports writers immediately begin questioning their ability to succeed at this level, in effect pasting that Peter Principle thing on their foreheads. Ultimately, one of these coaches goes back to college coaching, a whipped puppy, tail between his legs, but the other takes his team to the Super Bowl. Certainly there are variables in talent, toughness, or divisional opponents, schedule, and so on, but the biggest variable in the actual reaction of the two coaches to their new posts. Both have hoped for just such a move up to the NFL, but one views it as having finally arrived, and he sets about behaving as a newly crowned king, hiding his own insecurities and self-doubt with autocratic, even bombastic behavior. He quickly develops adversarial relationships with us in the media, players, and other coaches. His players read the papers, sense he's skating on thin ice, and do not respond. Soon he is horribly frustrated. His insecurities turn to fear of failure, his frustrations turn to aggression, and he is unable to use whatever skills he did bring with him. The other newly promoted coach takes a very different approach. To him, his step up to this coaching job is yet one more move forward on a lifetime of intended accomplishment. He is immediately focused on a whole new set of goals, from organizing a world-class staff to improving team morale. to uncovering hidden talents within the team to getting to the Super Bowl in 2 seasons. All of his energy is assumptively and productively focused. His goals are like lighthouses that keep him from running around. People respond to him differently. He gets different results. My sports writer friend had analyzed these situations psycho-cybernetically. Since human beings are goal-striving mechanisms, the self realizes itself fully only when individuals are moving forward towards something. Remember our comparison with the bicycle in a previous chapter? People maintain their balance, poise, and sense of security only as they move forward or seek. When you think of yourself as having attained the goal, you become static and you lose the security and equilibrium you had when you were moving towards something. If you are convinced that you are good in the absolute sense, you not only have no incentive to do better, but you feel insecure because you must defend the sham and pretense. The man who thinks he has arrived has about used up his usefulness to us, the president of a large business said to me recently. When someone called Jesus good, he admonished him, "Why callest thou me good? There is but one good, and that is the Father." St. Paul is generally regarded as a good man, yet his own attitude was, "I count myself not to have achieved, but I press on toward the goal." All right, that should give us plenty of stuff to talk about. I liked the, when he talks about the bicycle, that's such a simple explanation, not only in like learning how to do something and then it sticks with you later, but as far as the momentum, because if you're pedaling, everything's going cool, or maybe even you're pedaling and you can like stop pedaling and just put your arms out and coast, and but then if you slow down too much and you come to a stop and you're not pedaling, you just fall over. So I think that's a really I think that's a good analogy. What do you guys think, girls?
I related pretty heavily to talking about the coaches being in one position, one place, and doing well, and then going forward somewhere else. I went through a transition just in the last year and a half in business, and I'll probably relate a lot to my business in the sense that work for many years, and now I've been in the home business for about 12, 13 years, so most of my experiences are more recent. And I'd been very successful in another company. I built a team of over 10,000 people there. So when I came into this new company, everybody sat in anticipation that Danielle's just going to go out there and kill it. She's going to crush it. She's going to fly to the top, and everything's going to be great. And I had those should-haves and could-haves in my mind when I first started, and they haven't worked out just as rapidly as they did somewhere else. And yet, one of the things that I constantly remind myself, I can't even compare myself to the previous Danielle somewhere else. I've got to go where I am now with something brand new. And it's been interesting. At first, I saw a reaction in other people, like asking questions like, well, what's going on with Danielle? Why isn't she doing this? And why isn't this happening? I had to learn not to accept what other people's opinions were in that and realize this is a golden opportunity, exactly what it said there. I'm excited every day about where I'm going, and I know that I can achieve that. I could take the defeat and, oh, I should be here by now, and this should be happening, and that should be happening in my life. And in my previous self, years ago, I probably would have been more that way. But because of growth and recognizing those traits in myself, I've been able to turn those around. And sometimes we just have to slow down and realize that it goes back to everything we're talking about, that we can't even put past experiences on present situations. Everything's constantly changing and shifting, and we have to change with those shifts. Just like if you haven't rode a bike in a while, you might be nervous to get on the bike. You might shake and wobble at first, but again, you can get to a steady pace again and go forward. You just have to realize with confidence that you can do it. And that's the difference between, I think, the enemy and our mind as well.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there, Danielle. And you know, because I've experienced some of the same thing. I didn't have quite the success, you know, not this. I haven't been in the home business industry as long as what you have, but in my previous life, I like to, you know, I say previous life, but when I was a pet salon owner, you know, I was very, very successful at that, and you know, I had tons of clients. I had people coming to me from, you know, hours away to be at my, you know, to bring their pet to my salon. You know, I had a huge clientele. I made really good money with it, and it was really, I knew when I got out of it, it was time to get out of it. And when I switched over to the home business industry, it's been a struggle because I was constantly comparing myself to this previous version of me that was so successful. And I'm like, and I would have that frustration, and I would have the insecurity because I'm like, gosh, what is wrong with me, you know? And I kept, even though I'd have these little successes here and there, I would still have all this doubt of, you know, why, you know, what's up with me? Why aren't I having this success? What is it that I couldn't translate what I had done before into this new profession, you know? And I think that it's important for us to realize that we have to, there's such a huge learning process whenever you try anything new, particularly when it's a business venture, is that there's this whole entire new industry. You know, in the pet industry, when I had my pet salon, I had already been in the pet industry for, it was like, I don't know, 12 years. Yes, I had 12 years of experience when I stepped into my own business. Whereas here, with the, you know, the home business industry, I started at zero. And, you know, and a lot of times we'll do that comparing ourselves to these other very, very successful people, and we fail to realize, wait a second, they've been in this for a long time before they, you know, got that big boost of success. And, you know, just like in anything else, you've got to realize you've got to take baby steps in order to get to where it is that you ultimately want to go. And I think in here somewhere it was talking about, actually I think it was in the frustration section, where it talked about, you know, making too large of goals for yourself. And of course, we all want to have an ultimate long-term goal, but if we make too big of a goal in too short of a period of time, then we actually set ourselves up for frustration, because we set an impossible standard for ourselves, is basically what that boils down to. And so when we can recognize where we are and what is a realistic goal for 2 months from now, for 6 months from now, for a year from now, further out, then we're going to have much more success reaching those goals by doing that. So, Sandy, do you want to add anything else?
Yeah, my thoughts are sort of all over the place. Let's see. I was just looking back at the magic power recalibration part that Katherine read about, you know, role playing in the theater of your mind, and you know, I think that's something that has really helped me become more confident, and you know, when things don't seem like they're going on track, or I should be at this level by now and this successful by now, is just going back to you know, the visualization, the role playing in my head of who I am becoming, who I want to become, what I want my business to look like, and so that has been very helpful for me. And I think when I first saw the word insecurity as we were about to read it, I didn't know what he was going to talk about. I didn't remember this section from before, but that's the importance of rereading books, because you catch something again the next time that you forgot about last time. But I was thinking about, you know, I was very insecure growing up, and realizing now that a lot of it was worrying about what others were thinking about me. And what helped, I think what really gave me this like big leap in my business, in my personal life, was just realizing that most people, number one, don't care about what I'm doing. They're not even paying attention to me. Like, let it go, and not even care what they think either. A lot of it was fear of criticism, which Napoleon Hill, you know, talks about a lot in his books. Is the six fears, and one of them is this fear of criticism. And I had that pretty big time. You know, I was always super concerned about what other people were thinking, and that was also part of my shyness. Like, I just couldn't be myself because I was afraid of being judged. I was afraid of being criticized for who I was, and once I finally let that go, and that was just recently, probably in the last 6 months, where I was like, you know what, I don't care anymore. Nobody really cares what I'm doing. Nobody's watching like this, like, what is she doing? You know, so let it go. And you know, that I think that really gave me a big leap, just letting go of that big insecurity in my life, and realizing people aren't really giving that big of a crap about me, so let it go. That's it for now. Thanks.
That's so true, Sandy, you know, because that was a realization I had to come to a long time ago, too, is that, you know, I mean, and of course, I think it keeps coming back off and on, you know, over different things, but yeah, just realizing that people are so focused on themselves and so worried about their own insecurities that they aren't paying so much attention to what you're doing. It's only when you do something big that they notice. So, yeah, I love that. That's great. So, one thing that I wanted to mention, you were talking about the role-playing in the theater of the mind, and he had mentioned that in this chapter, and there was actually a, earlier in the book, he told the story of how this one salesman was getting ready to meet with a huge client, somebody bigger than he'd ever, you know, tried to cut a deal with ever before in his life, and he had, you know, a lot of fear and insecurity and all that kind of thing that was going on with him, and he was like, okay, I'm going to use this principle of, you know, the theater of the mind. So he had some time to prepare for it, so he spent many days just sitting in his easy chair, as they called it, and he would just in his mind role play that interaction between himself and this bigwig that he was going to be, you know, getting with. And you know, by doing that, he actually was doing it over a repeated period of time. He actually almost made it so that when he went into that actual interview or that actual meeting, that it played out almost exactly the same as it did in the theater of his mind. And I thought that, you know, that's such a powerful story, because whether we realize it or not, you know, a lot of times we're automatically doing that in our minds anyway. When you know, just in life in general, I'm sure that everybody here has had a job interview at some point in time in their life, and before you went to that job interview, were you like saying over and over in your mind what you think you're going to say to different interview questions, and, you know, and things like that? We just have that natural tendency, and sometimes that'll happen, you know, if you're getting ready to go on a date with somebody, or you're you know, anything. So we have this automatic thing that we do, and now, you know, you can take control of it, and you can choose exactly what it is that you want to play over and over in your brain, and you know, to point you in the direction that you want to go. So I thought that was just a good reminder of that. Thank you, Sandy. So let's see what we're right at the top of the hour. Awesome. Let me just look over here on the page real quick and see if anybody has anything else to add. Let's see here. Okay, Sack, he says, I don't like the idea that there's nothing new to learn. There's always room for improvement, as there are always hidden wonders in life. It may be best to look for new challenges if you feel you've lost your passion in your current pursuits. I was told that you may have multiple niches. That is true. That is true. Kay, she says, thanks, Sandy, for sharing. That's where I am right now. Awesome. Hey, Kay, how are you? Good to have you on here. Okay, so let's see. Any other comments? Nope, that's it for today. So, guys, I'm going to go ahead and make sure I can see here, get back on the right page. Go ahead and wrap it up for today. So, but first of all, just thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. I'm glad that you're here, because, I mean, this just says that you are actually a person who wants to work on yourself, become a better version of yourself. So congratulations for being here on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. And then let's see if I want to cover anything else. If you would like to join us on the panel, just as Danielle just jumped on here with us, and by the way, Danielle, it was awesome having you on here. You're welcome to join us any Saturday. But if there's anybody else that wants to jump on here and share with us their thoughts and experiences, opinions on what we're talking about, then there is a pinned post in our Google Plus community, and you can find our community at mindsetmasterycollective.com. Again, that's mindsetmasterycollective.com. That's our Google Plus community. It's completely free. Jump over there. Tell us what you think about this mastermind. Share your thoughts, your opinions, what you're working on in your life as far as personal development, and we're always looking to, you know, mastermind together. So with that, guys, have an awesome, amazing, and wonderful weekend. And we'll see you again here next week on the Saturday Morning Mastermind at 10 a.m. Eastern. Everybody, yay! Bye. Bye, guys. Oh, stop right.